Russian President Vladimir Putin took action today that's actually been long expected, and he recognized the independence of the two breakaway republics of Donetsk and Luhansk in the eastern part of Ukraine. That has predictably unleashed a storm of activity and has made the potential for war now right up to the brink. It's very difficult to imagine how this is peacefully resolved now. Many in the Russian government and certainly in the Russian media have continued to fan the flames and claimed that they're being attacked by Ukraine, that the Ukraine military was just on the brink, in fact had already begun, according to some reports, to attack into the Luhansk area. And now then there's many people already claiming, or already calling for Russian troops to go and protect the now Russian citizens in those two so-called independent countries. And as really anyone would expect, the initial reaction from the White House has been to impose more sanctions. The European Union has imposed more sanctions. Individual countries throughout Europe are condemning this move as being illegal under international law. And many other kinds of reactions like that, as was entirely predictable as well. Now here's the problem. It's easy for all of us in the West to point a finger of condemnation at Putin and to say, yeah, this is wrong and it violates law and all that. And all of those things are true. There's no question that you can't just take a part of another country and recognize that its independence. But the problem is that Putin believes that he can do it. Putin has calculated that it is his country's self-interest and that his security on his border is more important to secure than the cost that's going to be imposed from these financial sanctions and probably many more things to come. Now, if we don't want this to accelerate beyond where it is already, we're going to have to face, as the West, are going to have to face some pretty hard, tough choices in the hours ahead. Because if once Russia moves and they start military operations, this thing is going to just catapult out of anyone's control. And things are going to spiral into potentially very dangerous territory to where the war could not just be contained within Russia, within Ukraine, but could expand beyond their borders. And already you had former NATO Commander General Wes Clark in USA Today just hours ago suggest that we need to beef up NATO. We need to send more air power. We need to send more armor closer to Russia, basically continuing to ratchet up more and more pressure. And look, we can go back right now and say there's lots of things we should have been doing over the years that could have prevented it from getting this place. Many things we've talked about in previous deep dive videos, so I won't repeat those here. But we have to decide right now, are we going to continue to push in ways that are likely to accelerate and enhance the problems and increase the possibility that the war spirals out of control? Because I'm telling you, it is not out of the realm of possibility and should scare all of us that it's possible this thing could spiral into a nuclear war. There is nothing going on in Ukraine. Let me just categorically state this, no matter what anybody else wants to tell you. There is nothing going on in Ukraine that involves the security of the United States that we should risk a war with Russia, much less a nuclear conflict. The security of the United States is set right now. The security of NATO is set right now because unlike Ukraine, there are Article 5 guarantees for all of the nations of NATO that are in the region. And if Putin does anything, then those guarantees get automatically triggered. And we have all kinds of responses. Putin knows that. Look, militarily, let me just again point blank tell you, he has enough troops to carve up Ukraine almost however he wants to, though even there he has some limitations. He does not have the conventional forces to move beyond Ukraine. We are safe. So there's lots of actions we can take. We can impose punishments, but we have to be critically careful we don't accelerate this, expand this beyond where it may go in the near future, which is an intra-problem within Ukraine and then between Ukraine and Russia. We have to make absolutely certain that this thing stays contained where it is so that it doesn't begin to actually negatively impact the security of both the NATO alliance and our own security. We should not risk one American troop to die for a war that can't help us out and could spiral into nuclear conflict. Now is the time where we have to just have some cold, clear calculations of what's real, and we have to forget about just being brash and beating our chest and trying to sound tough all the time as though that's the only tools in the tool chest, because we should now be unambiguously crystal clear that Putin is not going to react to more threats of pressure. We've been doing that since 2007. And in 2008, he went into Georgia. In 2014, he took part of Crimea. And every time, all we want to do is talk about more and more pressure. And then now that in this whole period right here, again, all we talk about is pressure. And now look what it's done. It has not had the reaction we had. It has not put any kind of brakes on Putin. It has not made him recalculate or rethink what he's doing. It's made him actually more likely to go. Now, the more pressure we put in, if we bring in more military, more pressure in the form of military, then there is a good chance that he'll continue to escalate. It's very unlikely at this point that we're going to get him to back down now. So let's take a pause here and let's take a sober look at this. Don't take any immediate reactions that are going to anything beyond sanctions application, and let's make very, very clear that we don't do anything that's going to accelerate this beyond the borders of Ukraine. That would be catastrophic for American interests and something we have to avoid at all costs.